Why am I doing a talk on check washing fraud? It may seem like a relic from the past, a scam that thrived in the eras of the 70s, 80s, and 90s when check fraud was a booming industry. Yet there's a twist to this tale. Check washing scams are on the rise, prompting warnings from law enforcement nationwide. Against all hopes and expectations, this all but forgotten scam has made a comeback with a vengeance that can no longer be ignored. Changes to the Uniform Commercial Code in the mid 90s resulted in companies taking actions that put a real dent in the big business of check fraud. Unfortunately, it's back. If you want to learn how to foil check washing fraud before it costs you thousands or more, make sure you stick around until the end when I share the one tactic you can use to help protect yourself against this horrific crime. Hey guys, I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, your one-stop shop for cutting business intelligence if you work in, manage, or have responsibility for the accounts payable function. Now, let's take a look at exactly why thieves bother to wash stolen checks, how they do it, and how they do it. When a criminal steals a check, they can take it to the bank and try and cash it. But then they only get the amount that the check was written for. And they sometimes have to go through all sorts of machinations to prove they are the payee. This requires a lot of work, and often it's hardly worth the effort. But if they're able to change the payee or increase the dollar amount, well, that's a whole different story. Using a variety of techniques, they wash the check, enabling them to change the payee name and or the dollar amount that the check was written for. In fact, sometimes they're able to produce many copies of the same check and cash it many times. So how exactly does one wash a check in a way that it can be altered and used? Crooks very carefully remove the pertinent details from the check, i.e., the payee name and the dollar amount, using chemicals known to remove ink without damaging the paper. What is used to remove the ink will depend upon the components of the ink. Two common solvents used for this task are nail polish remover and rubbing alcohol. So not something that it's difficult to get your hands on. Once the information is removed, crooks can fill the check in with a payee name that they control and a larger dollar amount. They also then make many copies of the check. They write two or more checks, different names, different amounts. When it comes to altering checks, I want to share one hair-raising experience that I think demonstrates just how easy it is to cash a check that doesn't belong to you. One year, I sent both my son and my daughter a check for the holidays. When I put the checks in the cards, I mixed them up. So my son got my daughter's check and she got his. God bless him, but my son never noticed that the payee name on his check was his sister, and he simply deposited his check. My daughter did notice, and what she did was she crossed out his name on the face of the check and put her name in. And yes, both these checks cleared without a peep from either of the banks. Before we get to the one common process you should definitely avoid, we'd like to remind you that we tackle the big accounts payable and payment issues on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Saturdays, well, we like to have a little Wordle fun from time to time. So check out the AP Now channel for close to 400 videos that will help you expand your accounts payable and payment knowledge. So what's this common practice that could land you right smack in the middle of a check washing fraud scam? Mailing your checks by putting them in a mailbox, be it your own mailbox with the flag up or one of the U.S. Post Office's blue collection box. Putting it in your own mailbox with the flag up is just signaling to a crook and every wannabe crook that there's probably a check in the mailbox. As for the Post Office's blue collection boxes, well, that's another story. Criminals have gotten good at extracting mail from them, especially when these boxes are full up. So if you're tempted to use one and you see mail sticking out of the top, do not add to the potential problem. Don't try and shove your mail in. There are a few times when we've pulled up to the post office and I've been tired and we've, driven around to those blue collection boxes where you don't have to get out of your car. And I was tempted to do that, especially when it's raining or it's cold out. But don't do it. Now, some who are listening to this probably have heard Frank Abagnale speak and remember some of his stories about check washing. In fact, he talked about them in his book, which was made into the very entertaining but educational movie, Catch Me If You Can. I did a review of it and several other fraud movies in a recent posting. You can watch it using the link that will appear momentarily on your YouTube screen and is in the description below. As always, we appreciate your thumbs up as they help us grow.